Hello there. This is December the 27th, 2022, and I've got a question from Jeremy in Colorado Springs. This one is about the identity of a Levite. How will we be able to determine, or how is anybody going to determine the identity of the Levite? And from what I can tell, this question is mainly related to the coming of the new temple in Jerusalem, that eventually there's going to be another temple that's constructed there, and who will be given the position of being a priest there in the temple in Jerusalem. There really is no way to know. There really is no way to know who is a Levite. Out of all of the people who are Jews nowadays, there just simply is no way to be able to answer that kind of a question unless you have a genealogical record that goes back that far, that goes back to the time of Jesus and before. Now, I have known some families who do have genealogical records that go back like that. I do, but I've not seen any Levite genealogies yet. So it's not that it doesn't happen or it doesn't necessarily exist, but it's very, very unusual and very rare for those genealogies to really be maintained, to be able to describe that. The tribe of Levi was divided up into two different groups when Solomon died. When Solomon died, half of the Levites joined the 10 tribes of Israel, and they were taken in captivity into Assyria. All right, and we know that not just because it says that in the scriptures, all right, because it says that in the writings. We know that because of the writings of the people who went down there to invade and take the Israelites captive, all right? It's not just because you got one group of people who said this. There are many historians have documented this well enough that we know with great confidence it really did happen, and that's really where those 10 tribes of Israel per se went. And they eventually became assimilated within all the other surrounding countries and were effectively lost. There was an assumption that those people could be identified. You'll see in the letter that James wrote that he wrote the letter to the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Okay, if you look at the book of James, that was under the assumption that if anybody was to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, well, I suppose they must be one of those, and they're Gentiles, that they must be one of those people, one of those persons who are of the lost tribes of Israel. That was an assumption that I believe was made by James when he wrote that letter. It doesn't mean that he knew where they were, and that they were an identifiable group of people. I think that this was just an assumption that he was making. All right, now the other half of Israel was down to the south, and that became known as Judah, the Jewish people, the Judeans. Okay, and this was a combination of the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Judah, and the other half of the Levites. You see, the Levites stayed in the communities that they had. They had homes, they had communities in the land. And so when there was a split in the kingdom, those Levites who had real estate, and they had places to live and they had responsibilities and activities in their communities that they were already living in, they just simply became a part of that new nation that was formed, either the nation of Israel to the north or the nation of Judah to the south. So that's where the tribe of Levi was divided. When the tribes returned from the Babylonian captivity, and again, it's not just because we have Jewish history that says that's what happened, but we also have the Babylonian history who says that that's what happened. Okay, plenty of people of different countries, of different time periods, and different historians have documented well that really did happen. When the Jews returned from Babylon, they brought some of the Levites, some of the Benjamites. We just don't know who. What happened was that there was a change in philosophy that happened at that time that the Jew was no longer going to be identified by the paternal line. Okay, this was a decision that was made that when the Jews returned from the Babylonian captivity, the identity of a Jew was going to be defined by the maternal line, by who your mother was, not by who your father was. And so the keeping of genealogical records was not done in the same way that it was done before the Babylonian captivity. And for that reason also, the genealogical records have not been emphasized as something that people would maintain anymore, because still throughout the centuries, property rights were distributed according to the paternal line more than they were distributed according to the maternal line. And so there was a huge disconnect that took place between the need for genealogical records and the usage of them from a religious point of view. And so the idea of a Levite or a Benjamite or a Jew, again, got even more assimilated and lost to the point where, for the last 2,000 years, is just really has been of no significance, of no real importance per se. In addition to that, because there was no longer a temple, that what they meant, they went from a temple system to a synagogue system. All right. Now the question that was asked is there a remnant of people that claim to be of the tribe of Judah or of the tribe of Israel? More specifically, is there a tribe of Levites that continue the traditions of their past? All right. Whether there is a person who is recognized as a Jew or as an Israelite or as a Levite, can we identify those by the traditions that they are holding? And the answer is definitely no, because while there are some scattered traditions that have been maintained since the time of Christ and before, there are some. Most of the traditions that are being done within Judaism are traditions that have no connection to those time periods at all. Traditions have changed. They've evolved over time. So there's no way to trace those kinds of things. There's no way to do that to that kind of granularity, to that kind of detail. All right, so the real question that's going to be asked later on, of course, when the temple goes into operation, the real question is going to be, all right, so who's really a Levite? That's when this question is really going to become an issue. I do not know what the Temple Institute has decided concerning how they are going to identify an official priest. I don't know what they've really done with that. I'm not even sure if they've really answered that question. I would guess that they have had discussions about it, but I'm not sure that they've really come to a decision. But that's who you need to ask. You need to ask the Temple Institute. I have had conversations with the founder of the Temple Institute in the past, and this has not come up. This didn't come up back then, and I don't think he'd be willing to talk with me now. And I'm not going to even try. I don't even know if he's still alive. I really don't know. But eventually that question is going to come up. It is going to be asked. And there really is no way that it can be done. Some people have suggested that maybe this could be done through DNA. We could do DNA testing or somehow that through DNA we can identify who really is a Jew and who isn't. But folks, look, I have studied DNA, all right? I have studied bioinformatics, computational biology. My PhD is in computer science. That's what I was doing before I went into the ministry exclusively. This was a long time ago now, but I know the subject really well, and I have done computational analysis on DNA. I know how this is done and how this works. And I will tell you that from the research that I've had exposure to, I can say with great confidence that there's really no way to be able to determine these things with as much certainty as people would like. All right? You don't have a baseline. Okay? First of all, you don't have a baseline. You don't have the DNA of Levi. You know, you don't have of the guy. You know, the guy, the son of the son of Jacob. You don't have his DNA, right? And so you don't have an official baseline to be able to work with in order to make real decisions concerning DNA. You can't really do that. And even though people can find matches, you know, they can find matches and they can find blocks of DNA that seems to be closer to those who are recognized as Jews than those who are not. You know, this still doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Jew. You know, it just doesn't. There are approximation techniques, but they're still just approximations. You know, you don't have proof. Okay, you don't have any evidence. It's not going to work that way. It's sort of like comparing the DNA with people and apes. You know, for example, you find more patterns that match with butterflies than you do with apes between human DNA. You know, does that mean that we're connected genetically with butterflies? It doesn't mean that. All right, so no, DNA is not going to be the way to go. That was part of the question as well. Well, could we figure it out in that way? No, not really. Can we figure it out because we have some Jews who have the last name of Levi and Cohen? Maybe we could use that as a possibility. I would say that you can get closer that way, but you still can't be sure that they're really of the tribe of Levi because of all the assimilation that's been going on throughout the last several thousand years. So even that is not necessarily going to work, you know, and that name could have been assumed by people who were not necessarily of that tribe to begin with. So I don't think that it really can be done that way. Although if I was asked to make the decision, I'd probably do that. I'd probably start with the people who have a last name of Levi and Cohen and just go with that. You know, if I was asked, you know, how we would get started, I would go with that. I have a suspicion that the Temple Institute is going to work with it in this way. What they're going to do, probably, this is just my gut feeling, okay? This is not thus saith the Lord. I have no divine discernment concerning this whatsoever, which is why I partially hesitate to answer this kind of a question. But I have a suspicion that what they're going to do is they're just going to look for those people who seem to be the most devoted to the task of being a priest at the temple. You know, I do. I think that that's what they're going to look for. Just those people who are the most devoted to it will be the people who will be consecrated as being the priests. Okay? And what they're going to do is they're going to find the holy cow. You know? That's the red heifer. You know, and they're always looking for the red heifer. And eventually they're going to find the holy cow who has, who has no blemish and and has the complete red hair. For those of you who want to know the details of that, go into the law with relationship to the cleansing of the people who came in contact with a dead body before the feast of Passover. All right? If you come in contact with a dead body before the feast of Passover, you would be declared to be ritually unclean, in which case, in order to participate in the Passover, because you'd have to leave town. You have to leave the city limits until the sun goes down, and then you can come back in. But if it's the Passover, then you're going to miss out on the Passover. Well, you do have the option of participating in the Passover 30 days later, or the next full moon, the 14th day of the next month. You could do it then, according to the law, and declare that you are too far away because you came in contact with a dead body, and so you had to leave. You're too far. You're out of the city limits of Jerusalem. You can't observe the Passover. Okay, so what they did was they came up with the holy cow, or God presented the holy cow, and you're to set the cow on fire. and collect the ashes. And then you mix that with water and you sprinkle that on the person who came in contact with a dead body, because they had to move the person who died. You got to move him, got to get him out. And so you go to the temple, you're sprinkled with the ashes of the red heifer, and you are effectively declared to be ritually clean so that you can observe the Passover. And what they're going to do is they're going to find a holy cow and they're going to set them on fire, and they're going to collect the ashes, mix it with water, and they're going to sprinkle it on the people who seem to be the most devoted to being a priest, and they're going to declare that this is how the new priesthood is going to be established, that they are cleansed with the ashes of the red heifer. That's as close as we can get, and they are now going to be the beginning of the new Levitical priesthood. I suspect that that's how they are going to do it. Now, will they do it by inheritance after that? Will the sons of the new priests then be the next priests to take over? That I think will remain to be an unanswered question until the time comes. It is possible, I think it's possible, that they will establish priesthood by inheritance after that. But I don't know. I don't have enough to go on to know that that's really how it's going to happen. I think we have to wait until those decisions have to be made. All right, so I hope this helps. If you have any other questions for me, do send them to me directly by email at aaron@aaronbudgeon.net. Thanks.